And your reaction to Joe Mixon essentially taking a 2-year pay cut to stay the starting running back for the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, which is, I mean, in a way, it's just kind of routine off-season kind of thing that happens, right? Players restructure all the time, take those pay cuts to remain starters. And in Joe Mixon's case in particular, like that felt like a kind of potential parting of the ways. What is fascinating to me for that particular one is our buddy Paul Dehner at the Athletic, right? Tweeted out when he was breaking this news, this is the first time the Bengals have ever restructured a contract in this way. Like Cincinnati is, Brad speaks about this a lot of the time, like they have an awful lot of things that they don't do from a contract structure point of view, from a payment structure point of view. And this is one of them, apparently. They don't restructure contracts. That's not a thing that they do. And they have. They've broken that rule now to restructure Mixon's contract and keep him around. And, man, we're in this world. We've been pushing this, I guess, for a long time that, look, the running back position should be devalued relative to where it was in the past. And the NFL clearly is catching up with that right now. Like when you look at all these moves that are being made, Mixon inevitably being on the chopping block, hence the restructure, Dalvin Cook being gotten rid of because of his contract, Zeke Elliott, as soon as they could realistically get out from that deal, they did. This was brought up, I think, I forget who brought this up recently, but the running back franchise tag number is lower than it used to be. Like in 2015, it was a higher figure to franchise tag that running back, whereas every other position, it's gone the other way. You know, the bigger the contracts, the year-on-year inflation, that average of the top 5 guys at the position number goes up. It's gone down for running backs because people are paying running backs less. And now you have these 3 running backs on the franchise tag, and I think clearly the move for each case is to let them play out the tag and then walk. Like, not give them the long-term deal, the giant contract extension that they're looking for. It is to pay running backs throughout their rookie deals, franchise tag them if they're really good and you can't get anything modest done, and then move on. Just bite the bullet and say, all right, Saquon, you're great. You're an amazing talent, phenomenal athlete. It's been fun, but we're going to go draft the guy in the second round and, you know, do it for a fraction of whatever it is you're looking for that next deal. Good luck in the future. Like, I think that's clearly the move now.
Yeah, Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard all have been franchised. They're the only players that do not have a long-term deal in place by today's 4 p.m. Eastern deadline. And there's been threats of sitting out. So, it does sound good on paper, right? When you say just franchise them and move on. I think that's the on paper move, but will they actually call that bluff?
But remember where they really got screwed in, recent CBAs is there's now much stiffer penalties for holding out than there used to be. Like what they've actually done specifically to running backs. I mean, God, I feel so bad for running backs because this position, it's just getting hosed from every possible angle, and there's no fix to it that doesn't impact a bunch of other positions that aren't getting screwed in the same way, right? So running backs are in this world now where we're actually incentivizing the franchise tag for them because the franchise tag number is going down. They're still talented players, but you don't want to give them a long-term contract. So the NFL teams are actually being incentivized right now to slap the franchise tag on all these running backs and make them play out one last year at guaranteed relatively low sums of money. And in the past, that would be a risk because players don't like the franchise tag. You can threaten to hold out. Now you can't really hold out because the fines for non-excused absences when it gets to real football are so astronomical that unless you do end up getting something done, it's not worth your time to hold out. You lose all the money so quickly. So they've basically removed the leverage. Josh Jacobs, I think, is the one that's made the most noise about, I'm going to hold out. He would be the first, I think, real significant holdout of any substance since that change came in and they started really ramping up the fines for holdouts. So NFL running backs right now are just getting screwed. If you don't already have one of those big deals, we may have seen the last of those monster contracts handed out until the game fundamentally shifts back in any way, shape, or form. But Like, if you're a new wave of running back, I don't know if anybody is going to be getting one of those giant contracts again.
Yeah, I mean, a couple things at play here, not to rehash the entire running back argument, but it's a combination of things, right? Teams have found that having two running backs is better than just having one bell cow. We know that they're fragile just from an injury standpoint. They take an absolute beating. So even though Christian McCaffrey is probably, I think he's the most valuable using WAR, most valuable running back over the last 3 or 4 years, even that's not at the same level that it could be because he missed some time as well. It's really tough to just stay durable. We know that their production is dependent on other positions. So there's a whole slew of things. And then you mentioned the CBA, Sam. I don't want to dive too far into that, but I'll just say this. The Players Association over the last 10 years or so, and I'm not criticizing them for this, I'm just stating facts, they have spent most of their time worrying about player safety and pushing for player safety, less practice time. That has been their focus, right? And that makes sense, right? I mean, we're talking about players who want to make sure that when they're in their 40s and 50s and 60s, they're not living like former NFL players are right now, making sure the quality of life is good. However, I believe they've been leaving money on the table. Salaries and cap could go up even higher if they pushed it. Franchise tags, little stuff like we've talked about, like edge defenders getting tagged as linebackers. Like the NFL still has these loopholes to keep salaries lower than they should be. But the players have not been able to fight for the financial aspect as much. They've had to fight for the quality of life and taking fewer headshots and all these different things. So I just wanted to make that point. And again, the running back value, we just see the interchangeability of the backup many, many times. And like the fact that Josh Jacobs, he was probably the best running back in the NFL last year. But we don't see the same guy be the best running back in the NFL year over year. That tends to fluctuate either because of injury or just because of the nature of the position. So all of that stuff is added up, and NFL teams are just like, I'm not gonna pay you just to do it, right? Remember, like when Todd Gurley got re-signed, the Rams were like, we know it's probably not the best move, but he's a good locker room guy. We want to do well by him. So like the human element used to come in a little bit more where you wanted to keep them together, but there hasn't been a long-term contract that has not gotten burnt over the last 5 or 6 years after just a history of, not good success on long-term deals.
To put some numbers to the holdout problem, according to Over the Cap, for right now, if you don't show up to mandatory mini camps, you can be fined $16,500 for the first day, $33,000 for the second day, $50,000 for the third day, and then once you get to training camps, that becomes $50,000 a day. So if you don't show up to mini camp and training camp, like you haven't even made it to like the regular season or the end of preseason, you're going to be out the guts of $1 million as a player. And if you're like the number they're playing on for this franchise tag is a little over 10 million, so 10% of your money is gone before you even make it to the regular season, right? And then like it's just become so financially onerous to hold out anymore that you're not seeing that happen, which is why there's been this kind of move to pivot to this hold in where you show up and then develop your mysterious calf injury or whatever it is, right? Something that I can't possibly play. I got something I'm dealing with, right? So that maybe that happens and that's how they deal with it. But the point being, running backs are now in this world where they're getting slapped on the franchise tag, which, by the way, I think is a bigger issue for running backs than any other position because you're getting your ass kicked as a running back. Like, whatever about a quarterback playing a year on a franchise tag, number one, it's 4 times the money. Number two, generally speaking, quarterbacks are an awful lot less likely to get murdered during the course of the season than a running back. So running backs are being forced to play on this franchise tag, which is a lot riskier for them in terms of they might get hurt and not make it to the next contract. And there's nothing they can do about it because the fines they rack up for holding out are so huge. So they're just screwed. Like, the only answer at this point, if you want more than the $10 million franchise tag, is to basically go to the team, cap in hand, and say, like, what is the highest figure you're willing to go to? Because that's all I can do. Like, Saquon is apparently looking for a sort of legitimate, old-school looking running back contract, and I just can't see that happening. But the Austin Eckler type deals. Like, those are the contracts that NFL teams are looking to hand out right now. So these guys have to sort of look at that deal and say, all right, what is the Austin Eckler deal adjusted for inflation and adjusted for being Saquon Barkley? What does that look like? Because that's my realistic aiming point here. Otherwise, sad as it is for these guys, the correct move for NFL teams is to just play him out the front. Like, for the Giants, the better move for them than to give Saquon the deal he's looking for is to play him on the tag and actually tag him again than it is to pay him the contract he's looking for. Like, that's the world they're in, is 2 franchise tags is actually a better deal for them than giving them a giant Zeke Elliott type of contract, or 1 tag, move on, draft a guy in the second round, and just rinse and repeat. It is a brutal landscape to be a running back in today's NFL.
And you're basically running out of teams that are going to say, I don't care what the data says. I'll do it. I'll go old school. I'll give you that running back contract. You're just running out of Jerry Jones is still there, but even he understands when he makes moves like, Zeke touches the ball more than Jalen Ramsey. I'm going to draft Zeke at 4 instead of Jalen Ramsey. And then I'm going to double down and pay Zeke this huge contract. Like, you're running out of people that are willing to do that. One other way I just want to paint this picture with Saquon Barkley, using PFF WAR, which is basically a combination of grading and performance and how often you do it. So the more you're on the field playing well, the more valuable you are. Saquon Barkley's ranks in PFF WAR, in his rookie year, he was 2nd among all running backs. Then he drops to 15th in 2019. But then he gets banged up and he's injured and less productive. In year 3, he's 77th out of 80 qualifiers. Then he's 49th out of 80 qualifiers. And then last year, he's back up to 4th. So you can kind of see, like, at his ceiling, he's a top 5 most valuable running back and what he brings as a runner and as a receiver. But he's only done that 2 out of 5 years in his career. And those are probably the easiest 5 years to project a running back, because injuries don't get better, they get worse as you get older. Is there another position in sports, Sam, that is like this, where like every other position, right? We always talk about offensive line development. They get better years 3, 4, and 5. Receiver sometimes takes a little bit to hit the ground running, and then they might figure it out. Evan Ingram just re-signed with the Jags. We'll talk about him in a minute. Tight end is a position that sometimes takes 2 or 3 years to get used to it. Running back is the complete opposite.
Yeah.
Where you're not learning new things and you become a veteran and you become better by year 5 or 6. All you're doing is becoming less athletic, probably, and it's hurting you more than it's helping you. Is there any other position in sports where it's better to have a guy in years, 1 through 5 than it is beyond that?
No, probably not. Like, that's the other thing, is running back is at their best, arguably, from day one. Like, rookie year, what you lose in terms of, does he know the entire system? Like, where is he in the playbook, the understanding, et cetera? You gain, and he's at his most athletically gifted at this point. Is probably only getting is only getting worse in that area after the attritional beatdown of his rookie year. So, like, years 1 and 2 are the most effective years for a running back, and then you get them at the end of that contract, and it's probably time to start looking in a new direction anyway.